Hi, this is Troy Teeples with ReadyPreppers.com. I'm here to introduce David Gilmore, and he is going to be presenting today on the Mittleider gardening system. So we would like to welcome him here today and thank him for joining us. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for being here. This is for you, all right? I already know this stuff. So I appreciate your effort in getting up and coming. I know it's early, first thing in the morning, that this may be the most important presentation you're at this whole weekend. Not because I'm anybody special, it's simply because of the value of the information. I've got an important handout. Everyone just take one of those. And everybody who attends my class gets my personal contact information. So if at any point you have a question, and you're saying, David, I'm on page 129 of the Mittleider Gardening Course book, and I don't understand what they, can you clarify that? Then I'll sit down and I'll go grab my book and we'll go through that. I'm passionate about what I do, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But what we're going to talk about here this morning is how to grow food as if your life depends on it, because it probably will. And there's a lot of other things I could be doing this morning, and you too, that I think we're all on the same page as far as the importance of this information. All right, just curiosity, how many of you have ever gardened? Everybody, almost. All right, good. How many of you have a garden right now? How many of you have a perfect garden? Got one. All right, excellent. Glad I'm not the only one here. All right. We're going to talk about the Mittleider gardening method. There's lots of different ways to garden. I've tried almost all of them in detail and in length. And the reason why I'm teaching the Mittleider gardening method is because it's proven. Jacob Mittleider spent 55 years of his life teaching mainly people who had no money. We're talking third world, developing countries, Zimbabwe, Colombia, Papua New Guinea, then over in Okinawa, all through Africa, Central, South America. People who were literally starving to death because they could not grow enough food, and the food that they grew was so low in nutrition, it was just filler food, if you know what I mean. So he, when he was 47 years old, he was known nationwide as the plant guy. He grew flowers and had patents on his flowers. Now, if you're able to have a plant patent, you're a pretty smart guy. If you have 2, you're really smart. If you have 3 patents, you're like a rock star. He had 11. This gentleman was absolutely amazing. He knew and understood plants, and was well recognized for that. He passed away 9 years ago, and before he passed away, he knew he was dying. He put everything he knew into this book. This is a man's lifetime experience in a $20 book called the Mittleider Gardening Course book. This is tens of thousands of gardens in 27 countries, all put into one step-by-step book. Now, I'm not a very smart guy, but I'm smart enough to follow directions. And if I went to a world-class restaurant and and there was an award-winning chef, and I asked for the recipe for the entree, and he gave it to me, why on earth would I ever change the recipe, right? So I simply took this book 2.5 years ago and started following the steps. Not knowing anything about gardening, having no experience, I just followed the steps. My wife, on the other hand, is the gardener in the family. Who's the gardener in the family here? Okay, so there is like a gardener in the family, isn't there? In my family is my wife. She's a 30-year gardener. She's an amazing gardener. She's a certified master gardener. We've moved 18 times. She has built 18 gardens from scratch. When we bought the property, built our house in Houston, we had the property, it was an oversized lot. She said the garden goes here, house can go anywhere else. I mean, this is a gardener's gardener. So she's pretty serious. With that being said, she still has some struggles with her garden. And so I went about to try to help her fix the gardening problem. Because I'm the husband, I'm supposed to fix things, right? Only with your wife's permission, I learned. So I didn't get my wife's permission, so it was like, all right, David, you do your science experiment over there, and you don't touch my garden, all right? So that being said, I took the Mittleider Gardening course book, and in 3 months, I outproduced her 6-1. So needless to say, we didn't talk gardening at all at the house. I mean, not at all. And we weren't competing, but I was clearly winning. So I want to share with you what I had learned, and having no experience and having a wonderful garden. We recently moved from Houston to Idaho last August, and I haven't changed anything I do in my garden. The climate's changed dramatically, but the principles I follow and the laws that we need to understand are true anywhere in the world, and we're going to go over that. A little bit about myself. I don't do this professionally. This is a passion of mine. Professionally, I'm a search engine optimizer. I've been doing that since 1999. So, I have a very simple contract with my clients. If your website isn't on the first page of the search engines, you don't pay me. That's a pretty simple contract. If I'm not doing my job and you're not making money, then don't pay me. And so that's how I do my business. But some people have passions about quilting and family history and fishing. Mine is saving lives and teaching people how to grow food as if their life depends on it. So I do have over 400 videos online at ldsprepper.com. That's my YouTube channel. That's on my contact card that you have. And I have videos on beekeeping, gardening, self-defense, rainwater capture systems, all kinds of preparedness items, solar oven cooking, so forth. I'm just trying to share, pay forward what I've learned and help others save time and money. My wife, as I mentioned, is a great gardener. And after watching her for 30 years, all right, and seeing all the time that she spent at it, all the money it cost me, like when we built her garden in Houston, she built 11 garden beds, and we brought in a truckload of the best soil you could buy. It was $1,000 worth of soil. I call it designer soil. That had 3 1/8-inch screened leaf mold compost, whatever that is. All right, but that was really important. And it had sand, and it had this, and it had that, and that went into her garden. So, in addition to that, she was using organic fertilizer and seaweed extract, fish emulsion, doing foliar feeding with compost tea. I mean, she grew tomatoes, but they were like $80 tomatoes. If you know what I'm talking about, we're just making so much stuff, money on stuff. So I come with you with no certifications, no background. I'm just going to share what I've done, but I think it's really important. So when I was trying to help my wife in her garden, and the reason why I wanted to help her is because even with all that she did, she was an amazing gardener, but frustrated because she still had bugs coming in and chewing on her plants. And she still had diseases. With everything she was doing, she still had diseases. And so I said, let me fix this for you. So I was looking for a gardening system that was sustainable. In other words, something that I could, we were buying mulch and compost and manure every year, right? And you can't store that, and it's not very portable. All right? So I was looking for something that's storable and portable. So when we moved from Houston to Idaho, all of our gardening nutrients came with us. Now, I don't know if you can imagine us carrying, and we have 5 years supply of gardening nutrients. Could you imagine us trucking 5 years supply of cow manure from Houston to Idaho? Okay? It's not going to work. What's that?
Idaho has plenty.
Yes, I'm surrounded by farmers. They're more than willing to have me come pick it up. I needed something that had I needed no expertise or experience. I had none, so I needed to start from ground zero. That was an advantage to me because I didn't have to forget what I thought I knew about gardening. And that's probably the hardest thing that you'll experience.
Then I'm in good
I'm in good company.
All right, good.
Because I know nothing.
I needed something that was highly productive. In other words, if I'm going to grow food as if my life depends on it, I need to grow a lot of food, and I need to do it in a small space, probably. Maybe a backyard, maybe a patio, maybe a deck, maybe, you know, I don't have a lot of space. And I needed something that was really important to me was a high nutritious. I wanted to make sure if I'm living off my garden that I was getting all the nutrition and energy that I needed. I found out that the Mittleider gardening method uses half the amount of water as normal gardening. And we actually did a presentation in Utah last year with an engineer. Now this was an engineer's engineer. He measured and logged everything. And before he put in a Mittleider garden, he was using drip irrigation, and he had to go through a meter, so he knew exactly how much water he was using in his garden. When he put in the Mittleider garden, he was using half the water he was using with drip irrigation. We're talking about very, very conservative water use because we water only right at the plant roots, and we'll talk about that later. I needed something that was very inexpensive and guaranteed success. So Jacob guaranteed that there were, let me help you here. What's that? Jacob Mittleider guaranteed a great garden in any climate, in any soil, with no soil amendments. And I'm thinking, okay, if that's a guarantee, I'll take him for his word. And the only way I could make sure I could count on that guarantee is if I didn't change anything. I just did what he did. So, this is a quote I came across a couple years ago. It's one of the most frightening quotes I've ever read from Henry Kissinger, and it's absolutely true. Do you agree? Just ask Mao, ask any dictator. Really the person who controls the food controls the people. What we want to do today is put you in control of your food. The availability, the quality, what isn't or is sprayed on it, the nutritional value, all right, the cost. We're going to make you in control of your food. And we're going to do that by talking about the 6 laws of plant growth. Everything we do in the Mittleider gardening method is based on the 6 laws of plant growth. That's the sheet that you have in your hand. That's a great place to be taking notes as I'm talking here. All right, the first law of plant growth. Well, let's talk about this first. This is the most important thing I want you to remember this morning. A plant can only be as productive as its greatest limiting factor. Yes?
Do you have these books for samplers so that we won't need to take notes?
Yes, we do have the books here. And I'm here representing the Food for Everyone Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization. And they've given us discounts for the fair. We have, not in this building, but the next building over. We have the books, we have the nutrients, we have the CD. We brought some of the supplies that they have available. What I figure is the starter kit, what you need to get going, is all I brought. Okay, so we do have them there, and they're at a very, very, very decent price. Actually, the lowest price I've ever seen them offer. So thanks for asking. So, if a plant has all the light, the right temperature, all the air it needs for the roots, all the water it needs, proper nutrition, but the deer come in and eat everything, how's that going to work? So that would be a limiting factor, wouldn't it? What if you controlled the deer, had perfect temperature, great light, great drainage, and didn't feed the garden and they didn't have the nutrition they needed? That would be a limiting factor, wouldn't it? We're going to talk about eliminating limiting factors this morning. All right? Number one, and the most important law, is light. Now, these are not suggestions. These aren't good ideas. These are laws. All right? Can you break the law? Can you defy the law of gravity? No. You can't. And if you ignore it, you'll have consequences, right? All right? If you ignore these laws, any of them, to any extent, you will suffer the consequences. So we're going to tell you exactly what you need to do. And this comes from 10,000 gardens, 27 countries, 55 years. So it's nothing that I came up with. It's all in the book. But the most important thing is to have 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. And if you have to choose between morning sunlight and evening sunlight, get the afternoon sunlight. because as we all know, it's hotter in the afternoon. There's more energy from the sun in the afternoon, isn't there? More energy means more sunlight means more energy for your plants, which means more photosynthesis, better production, and so forth. Okay? So, the best sun is the afternoon. If you can, make sure you don't have anything on the west or south side. We're in the northern hemisphere, so you want to plant your tall plants on the north side so they don't shadow the short plants. Sun comes up in the east and kind of swings around to the south, right? And then ends up in the west. If we were in South America, it would come up on the east, swing around to the north, because they're below the equator, right? So we want to make sure that we have the south open for full sunshine. Something I've noticed as I've been to lots and lots and lots of gardens, for some reason, I read a $20 book and now I'm the gardening expert and everybody calls me and you come over to my garden. And so I go to people's gardens, and one of the things I notice a lot is they don't prune enough. If you have leaves overlapping each other, this leaf is causing this leaf not to have any light. So if I have leaves crossing, I'll take my pruning shears and I'll just cut right through those leaves. Right? And that way now both leaves are getting light. So make sure you're pruning your plants either next to each other so they're not overshadowing each other, or sometimes the same plant will overshadow itself. Make sure you leave enough leaves on there for photosynthesis, but try to get rid of the shadow. That's really important. So number one is light.
When you say cutting them in half, you just cut the two in half?
Yeah, so if they're overlapping like this, and this plant's coming from here, and this one's from here, I just take my scissors and I just cut them right where they're overlapping. And so I'm taking off, this much here and this much here. Okay?
Like a haircut.
Like a haircut. That's what I call it. I call it. I'm gonna go. I'll tell my wife I'm gonna go give the plants a haircut. That's exactly what I say. All right. Temperature is number 2. Here in Idaho Falls, we plant on Memorial Day, about June 1st, Mother's Day. Why is that?
It's finally warm enough.
It's all about temperature, right? That's the average day of frost. What if you could control the temperature? If you could control the temperature, could you grow anything, anytime, anywhere? You could, couldn't you? And that's exactly what I'm doing in Idaho Falls. We grow year-round with no heat, and I'll show you that. But something you need to understand is seeds germinate between 70 and 85 degrees. Now you can get some of them to germinate at a lower temperature, but if you want the highest germination rate, you want to germinate your seeds between 70 and 85 degrees. Does everybody have the handouts? Anybody not have the handout and my contact card? Over here, okay? Everything on the screen is on your paper, so you can add my comments, but all this detail, every letter is on that paper to help you save from taking too many notes. So, if you want to germinate your seeds at 55 degrees, great. You may get 60% or 40% germination. You want 90, 95, 100% germination. Germinate your seeds between 70 and 85 degrees. We germinate our seeds according to the Mittleider gardening method in the seed production section of the book. And so we build these little 18-inch square boxes, fill them with sand, sawdust, and perlite. Mix that up. We put in our lettuce, our beets, our corn, our zucchini, our watermelon, our cucumbers, all in the same tray. And we put it at 80 degrees with a little heat mat underneath it. You can get on Amazon.com and grow them right on our kitchen counter. All right? As soon as they germinate, they need light. So we have, and you'll see this on my videos. If you go to the ldsprepper.com and just click on Mittleider Gardening, you'll see how I germinate. And you can do that. We did this in Houston. We didn't have enough kitchen counter in Houston, so we did it in our bathroom over our jacuzzi. Okay? Here in Idaho, we're doing it on our kitchen counter. If your life depends on it, you're going to find space, aren't you? All right? So we didn't use the jacuzzi other than growing plants. All right? That was what it was for. That we were, we were practicing how to survive is what we were doing. We were getting the skills. And so we are very, very good at seeding production. I killed thousands of plants trying to figure out how to grow seeds. Well, maybe hundreds. Okay? It's ldsprepper.com. It's on my contact card. But as soon as those seeds break ground, there's more detail in the book. we turn the light on. What's the first law of plant growth? Light. As soon as those seeds break ground, as soon as they germinate, then we turn the lights on, and as the plant grows up, we move the light up, so we keep the light as close as we can, so it's getting as much light as possible, and we have 6 lights going across our plants. Just as much light as possible. Even better would be outside. You can't replace sunlight. We can put in artificial light if you don't have it, but sunlight's the best. Okay, once they've germinated, the seedlings can withstand a greater temperature range, actually a little bit colder, and once they've actually outdoors, they can even withstand even more heat. Now what's important to understand is if it gets above 95 degrees, you may get blossoms, but you probably won't get fruit set. It's too hot. The plant is spending all its time perspiring, all its energy trying to stay alive, and it knows it's stressed out, so it's going to drop the fruit. Because you know, women, when you're pregnant, it takes a lot more energy, doesn't it? Okay? So it's going to drop the fruit to try to stay alive. So in the extreme summer heat, you want to reduce the heat, but you want to keep the light as much as possible. In the cold weather, you want to increase the temperature so it's warm. Keep it above freezing at night, and then make sure it doesn't get above 95 during the day. And we'll show you how to do that. This is a photograph of my backyard a few months ago in Idaho Falls. This is the wonderful, awful Idaho clay, you know, just awful stuff that I'm growing in. We were waist high in weeds when we started this field here. Had never had a garden in it. We went through with the rototiller, got rid of the weeds and the rocks, and the details is in the Mittleider Gardening course book, exactly how far down to set the tiller, so you're not going too deep. We sifted all the rocks and the weeds out, and it rained on Wednesday, and I went out there. It didn't rain much, but it turned into soup. You know what I mean? It's that gooey, messy, sloppy. So I had to get my mud boots on to go out there. It's just mess. It doesn't make any difference. The dirt doesn't make any difference. The cheapest part of gardening should be the dirt. It should be dirt cheap. It doesn't make any difference what you're growing in. All right? We have grown in 100% pine needles. We've grown in 100% blow sand. It doesn't make any difference. The soil needs to do 5 things. It needs to hold the plant. Now, in Houston, we were growing in $1,000 soil. Okay, my wife was. I was growing in sand and sawdust. All right, you tell me if these 5 qualifications work for both. It needs to hold the plant. Will $1,000 soil do that? Will sand and sawdust do that? Okay, it needs to hold the water. It needs to hold the nutrients that we give it. It needs to be able to help mitigate temperature swings. So the sand and sawdust is much cooler in the heat in the summer and much warmer in the winter. And it also needs to provide air or drainage for the plant. Okay, sand and sawdust do that? Yes. $1,000 soil do that? Yes. Don't spend the $1,000. Give me $999. I'll bring over the sand and sawdust for you. Right? You don't need to spend money on dirt. All right. But anyway, so what I did here is in the Mittleider Gardening course book, I think it's lesson 23. It talks about how to extend your gardening season. Yeah, lesson 23, cold weather gardening. By following the instructions and making these little A-frames for these mini greenhouses, we were able to plant my corn in April outside. My corn right now is 8.5 feet tall when I left. Maybe 9 feet tall. I don't know. I've been gone for 3 days. All right. We have full ears of corn on. We've already harvested pumpkin. All right. So if you follow the second law of plant growth, which is temperature, and you control that temperature by building a little A-frame, putting greenhouse plastic over it, closing the ends at night to keep it warm. If it's going to get a hard freeze, go down to Home Depot and get one of those little 1500-watt heaters, set it on low, and you know that heat will just spread through in here and build up this area. Okay, but I never had to do that all winter long. I didn't. I mean, I planted here in April, so since April I didn't have to put any heat in here. When it got 50 degrees, I opened up the ends to let the air through. When it got 70 degrees outside, I took the plastic off. Now what was cool is, during this period, we had heavy rains. I don't know if you remember this. Everyone's trying to get out there and we had lots of wind. So I can tell you from personal experience that this will withstand 60-mile-an-hour winds and heavy rain and hail. Okay? Yes?
I had the same exact thing, only we had 10 inches of snow.
10 inches of snow. Did it hold up?
It did.
Awesome. Very good. All right, now the way that I'm holding this down is simply with the dirt. I just throw the dirt from the walkway. I just kind of skim the surface and just throw it as I walk down the walkway on the edge. That was it. When it got too hot, I just grabbed this one side and pulled it over, left the other side, the dirt on the other side, so it was already filled, we're taking care of that. At night, I had to pull it back over and tie it down. That's all it took. Okay, we're on our third planting already. Our third planting outside.
From April?
Well, yes, we actually started in March. I planted the corn in April. Okay, so yes, you can, by following the Mittleider gardening method, you can extend your gardening season 6 weeks earlier in the spring and 6 weeks later in the fall. That's 12 weeks of extra gardening, 12 weeks of more food. Is that almost doubling your food production? Yes, you really can live following the Mittleider method from your garden. Matter of fact, in the book it shows you how you can feed a family of 4 in a 47-foot by 47-foot area. All the food that they need. And that's coming from Jacob Mittleider, who was a vegetarian as a Seventh-day Adventist. That means he's eating everything out of his garden. All right? He's not bringing the neighbor's cow. We're supplementing his food.
That's perfect, because President Mary G. Romney said, the day will come you'll live off what you produce. And I've also been told that the day will come, you'll live off essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Everything you need, you'll get from the land.
I think that's true. I think they know what they're talking about. So this is all I did. This cost me 74 cents to make.
Oh, wow.
All right. This is just PVC pipe at Home Depot. It's very inexpensive. So what I did here, let me just go to the next picture, and I don't know if you can see that. I took the cheapest PVC pipe they have, which is 3/4 inch thin wall. It's called Class 200 PVC, and I cut 17-inch strips, and I hammered those down into the ground, and I took 1/2-inch PVC, bent it, and I slid it down into those sleeves. That's how I was able to withstand the 60-mile-an-hour winds, because I had a 17-inch stake, basically, in the ground. I like using the PVC because it doesn't deteriorate and it doesn't rust. I'm not worried about scratching my leg and having it, tetanus shots from using rebar.
Does
Yeah.
it explain how to do the PVC like that?
Yes, it shows it gives you the exact measurements and how to do that right in the book.
In the book, okay.
Yes, in the Mittleider Gardening Course book.
So you're driving the 1/2-inch pipe down into the ground.
I'm driving the 3/4-inch pipe into the ground, and I'm just placing the 1/2-inch pipe right inside of it.
Like rebar.
Like rebar, without the problem of rebar, rusting and getting tetanus shots and so
How
forth.
far down is that? Where is it?
Well, it stops about 2 inches above the ridge here. Okay, there's a ridge, and maybe you can see this better here. See where I've built the soil bed up? Now this was really important because when we had those heavy rains, you couldn't see my walkways in my garden. Not at all. It was like a lake, but there was no standing water in my growing area. All right, this comes from 10,000 gardens around the world. Who would know to do that, okay? Except for Jacob Mittleider, who's done this all over the world. And so where other people had the garden washed out, mine was perfectly fine. Never lost a plant. Because water simply drained out from the bottom.
That's
Yeah.
like what you want to do with your tent when you're camping.
Yes, raise it
So
up.
if you
Yes.
don't have access to a raised garden bed, you make one.
Yes,
Sunken with a raised border.
yes. And this is just dirt. All I did is I just gathered the dirt, and how to do this is in the book. I don't want to go into too much detail here. I just pulled the dirt in from the aisles, raised it up, and made it flat. Yeah, pretty clever, isn't it? Yeah. All right. The next level of growing outside would be building an in-the-garden greenhouse. This is a T-frame. We're growing vertically. These are all tomatoes. This is my very first Mittleider garden. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tomatoes. About 2,000 pounds of tomatoes hanging in this structure.
How tall are those?
2,000 pounds?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, those numbers.
Okay? I'm telling you, you will produce 5 to 10 times more produce than you can imagine. All right? Than you are normally doing. These posts are 7 feet high. They're 4x4, 8 feet long. So we put them in the ground 15 inches, all right? So my wife gets on her tiptoes and does the knot. I do it with no problem. I've seen them 6 feet high, and there's a gentleman who's taller than I am, and he had an 8 feet high because he didn't want to bump his head. The principle is grow vertically and cover it with plastic, and then have curtains on the sides and the end that roll up and down. So in Houston, where I built this, we had lots of wind, and when the wind would come, I'd simply roll down the side, and instead of my plants getting beat up by the wind, you guys ever seen that in your garden? Okay, stressing out the plants, I just roll down the side. When we had heavy rains, I just roll down the side. When it got cold, I just roll down the sides. All right? And when you want to get inside, you just open up the end and you walk inside. And you're outside the wind, you're outside of the cold. It works great.
What about hot sun? Is there a way to pull that down for the sun too?
I'm going to show you how I took care of the heat in Houston. Absolutely. That's something I had to deal with much more in Houston than I did in Idaho. Yes. Yes, please. Oh,
PVC and
yeah, this
2x4?
is greenhouse plastic. Great place to get that here. The cheapest place I found it in Idaho and Utah is Steve Regan Company, right in Salt Lake City. Great guy, great company. They carry it in stock. It's 6 mil greenhouse plastic. It's got a 4-year warranty. Please. That source isn't in the book because it's local, but how to build it is. Please don't use the Visqueen from Home Depot and Lowe's, right? It's not going to last a year. It's going to you're going to spend hundreds of dollars or whatever it's going to cost you, and you're going to have to replace it every 6 months to 12 months, all right? Buy this once. It's going to last you 4 to 7 to 10 years, depending on your weather. I just leave it out here all the time and roll it up and down as I need it, and it'll protect your plants. It'll always be there.
How do you spell the last name, Regan?
R-E-G-A-N. Just do search for Steve Regan Company. I saw a hand. Question?
Greenhouse plastic?
Greenhouse plastic. Yes. All right. The next level would be actually to build a greenhouse. And what I did is I built a geo-air greenhouse. We grew all the way through the winter with no heat in the greenhouse. This gentleman here, Russ Finch, has been growing citrus in his greenhouse with no heat in Minnesota for 30 years. You're gonna be surprised how simple this is. This is Jim Mabry's greenhouse in Kentucky. He's growing year-round with no heat. He's now become a professional. Since he's built this geo-air greenhouse, he's now become a commercial tomato grower. He sells out of his tomatoes in about an hour at the farmers markets because he's using the Mittleider method, so he has the best tasting tomatoes, so he can charge the most at the market. But he's a month before anybody else has tomatoes. Right? Do you think supply and demand, that makes a difference? All right. This greenhouse design and this greenhouse design is in the Mittleider Gardening Course book. This is the best greenhouse design I've seen. And the details and the material list and everything you need is right in the Mittleider Gardening Course book. This is what Jacob built all over the world. This is in Missouri, about 5 miles away from Adirondack, and this is in Idaho Falls. What we're doing about geo-air, it was simply taking pipe, 4-inch corrugated, solid, non-perforated drain pipe you get at Home Depot. Pipe though, wherever. It's just drain pipe, all right? We're going down into the ground about 8 feet. You can either put it underneath the structure or out, in front of the structure or down the pasture or whatever. Jim Mabry in Kentucky didn't have enough room on his property. He asked his neighbor, "Can I trench into your property?" He goes, "Yeah, go ahead." He trenched, filled it back up, and then it was done. Okay? So, this works really good if you want to heat and cool your house very, very cheaply. All right? I grew this last winter in my geo-air greenhouse with a 65-watt blower. That was it. That was my total cost for running the greenhouse. So, this is what Jim did in Kentucky. He laid out his piping on the ground. He put it on top of chicken wire. He secured the piping on this chicken wire because he dug an 8-foot deep trench. You don't want to be climbing down into an 8-foot trench that's 4 feet wide. That's a bad idea. So since it was all secured to the chicken wire, he just dropped it into the trench. It went down one layer, filled it up with 18 inches of soil, compacted that around the tubes, rolled the next layer over, went across. Now he's at 6.5 feet. Added 18 inches of soil, compacted that, rolled that back over, and then filled it up with dirt. Okay, his pipes came out inside, and this is the last level of one going in Ryrie. They called us, hey, we're putting in our geo-air tunnel today, so we swung by, and this is they're filling in the last layer right here. Notice we have styrofoam on the outside to help keep the frost line out. This is the geo-air tunnel I built in Shelley, Idaho. You're all welcome to come by. Just give me a call. We have 3 to 4 or 5 groups a day. We've had over 500 people come by since January to take a look at the gardens and how we're doing this. We're trying to pay it forward, trying to help people grow food with as low cost as possible. A 20 by 40 foot greenhouse, which is what I built, a kit would cost you about $6,000 to $12,000. I built this from greenhouse plastic, 2x4s, 2x6s, and PVC pipe for $1,200. It has withstood 66-mile-an-hour winds because we've clocked it at that. I don't know if it'll withstand 166-mile-an-hour winds because we haven't had them yet. I've been praying for them, but it hasn't worked out yet. All right. So when that happens, I'll let you know. But you can see my geo-air tubes right in here, and here they are on the west end. And on the east end, I have my little box. Now this is pretty high tech. These are toilet flanges I bought at Home Depot. All right. These are the drain pipes you can get at Home Depot. This is the box that my neighbor gave to me. I said I need a box for a manifold. He goes, I got a box in the back somewhere. Gave me a box, and this is a $170 fan that runs on 65 watts. So during the summer, I have the pipes up here, and I'm pulling the air down through the pipes. It goes underground. 8 feet deep. 8 feet deep is 55 degrees in Anchorage, Alaska, Idaho Falls, Mesa, Arizona, New York, New York. It doesn't make any difference unless you're, really, Antarctica somewhere. All right. If it's hot inside of here, it's going to pull that air through those tubes. It's going to simply run it through the tubes, which is in contact with 55-degree soil temperature, right? It's going to change that air temperature to 55 degrees. It's going to come out the other end, and I'm now cooling my greenhouse during the summer. Actually, during the summer, the temperature comes out about 65 degrees. I have thermometers inside the greenhouse and outside the greenhouse. Every 10 minutes, I get an update on my phone, so I know exactly what the temperatures are. I monitor, analyze, document everything. In the winter, the temperature comes out 55 degrees. So I know for a fact that in February, when it was 24 degrees below freezing outside, it was above freezing and nothing froze inside the greenhouse with no heat. That's what I know for sure, and I have documented. I don't know if it's going to be at minus 18 degrees outside, what it's going to be, but I have a feeling it's going to work. All right? I've prayed for it all winter long. Didn't happen. All right? But anyway, this is not rocket science. That works. How well does it work? This is April 11th, and this is what inside my greenhouse. These are the T-frames. We're growing with string here, right here. It's actually very specific. We're very specific about everything. There's no guesswork in this gardening method. It's 170-pound baler twine, or 210, nothing less than 170 pound. My first year I used 110 pound because I didn't take the effort to find the 170. And I walked outside. I had hundreds of pounds of tomatoes on the tomato plant. They got so heavy, it strangled the tomato plant. So I don't use 110 pound anymore. I simply follow the recipe. So salt, sugar, doesn't make any difference. It's the same stuff. It looks the same. No, it makes a difference, okay? So 170 pounds. So April 11th, here's our cabbage. You can see the tubes on the ground. During the winter, I have the tube on the ground because I'm pulling the cold air from the ground level and warming it up. Okay, as soon as it hits 40 degrees in the greenhouse, the blower comes on and it pulls that cold air, runs it through the tubes, and warms it up to 55 degrees. Here's my cauliflower, April 30th. That's Swiss chard, zucchini, butternut squash, spinach. This is our automatic watering system. We water, I was watering during winter for 60 seconds a day. That was it. 1 minute. Because I couldn't water for 30 because it was on a timer. I mean, for 30 seconds, so I had to do it for 60 seconds. But I could have, I would have watered for 30 seconds. Because we're only watering right at the root zone. When I said that we use half the amount of water as drip irrigation, I meant we use half the water of drip irrigation. Now, during the summer, remember, was it 2 weeks ago when it was 100 and some odd degrees? I was watering 3 times a day for a minute. I just looked at my plants, all right, and if they were wilting, if I noticed they were wilting at 3 o'clock, the next day I watered at 2 o'clock. So a wilting plant is a dying plant. How to make this automatic watering system is right here in the book. We take, again, the 3/4 inch cheap thin wall PVC. Every 4 inches we drill 3 holes, and that sprays down below the leaves, so we're not getting the leaves wet, not causing diseases and molds, and it goes right to where the roots are. Very, very conservative on water.
What about bugs?
Bugs, we're going to cover bugs. Okay, that's an important part about gardening, so we're not going to skip that. The bottom line on bugs is this: God created bugs. God's created everything for a purpose. The bug's job is to go and take care of the cycle of life and get rid of the dead, the dying, the weak plants, right? And help them decompose and go through the whole process. If you grow healthy plants, you're not going to have bug problems if you don't grow healthy plants. That's the bottom line. You can walk through my garden. I haven't sprayed my garden with anything. There are no bugs in my garden. They're just not there. When you're healthy, you have an aura around of you of health. We all know that, right? If you're sick, you can feel someone's aura change. The plants do the same thing. They send out the signal, the bugs pick up on it, and they come when you have weak and stressed plants. If you have healthy plants, they don't stay. Now, I saw some ladybugs in my greenhouse a few weeks ago. There were about 3 or 4 of them. I get really concerned when I see ladybugs in my greenhouse. Why are the ladybugs there? Ladybugs are carnivorous.
They're looking for prey.
They're looking for something to eat. So I watched those ladybugs, and they were gone within about 15 minutes. There was nothing in there for them to eat. All right? That's how I take care of my bugs. It's that simple. Okay? All right, so here's our tomatoes, April 30th. My wife just, on Wednesday before we came down, she canned 10 quarts of spaghetti sauce with 25 pounds of tomatoes that we harvested that Saturday. All right, so here it is. This is May 22nd, and see what I've added to my greenhouse? Shade cloth. You can also get that at Steve Regan. This was 40% shade cloth. You may want to write that down. You don't want to get too much shade because you want to remember the first law of plant growth is light. So 30 to 40% is what we would recommend. Nothing higher at all.
Where did you say you got that at?
Steve Regan, same place you get the plastic, or order online wherever you get it. What's important is that you obey the laws of plant growth. All right. Here's our pumpkin, May 29th. That's already been harvested. Here's our corn, May 29th. It was about 8 feet tall, 7.5 feet tall then. Our raspberries, when anybody here growing raspberries? Okay, have you noticed any yellow leaves on the raspberries this year? Okay, we had yellow leaves. We've never grown raspberries, ever. And they came up and they had yellow leaves all the way across. The people before us never fertilized the ground. And we started fertilizing the plants using the all-natural Mittleider weekly feed. The yellow went away. It was an iron deficiency. That's all it was. It wasn't a disease. It wasn't not enough water. It was lack of iron. I'll show you how to do that. Here's our russet potatoes. Right here, 30 feet of russet potatoes. They're now about this tall. All right. People say, David, there's a potato farmer here. There's a potato farmer here. There's a potato farmer here. You're surrounded by potato farmers. Why are you growing potatoes in Idaho? I said, you know what? I've talked to that potato farmer. He's got 1 or 2 years left and he's retiring. I don't want to be dependent on somebody else's production. That's not self-reliance, right? I want to learn the skill to grow potatoes. And that's why I'm growing potatoes. All right? And they're growing fabulously well. All right. Third law is air. We're talking soil air. Can you absorb, and there's an open chair right over here, right there.
Okay.
And there's handouts and a contact card. I believe you got one from me yesterday, but you need a handout. Can you absorb air through your skin? Yes, absolutely. Can you absorb enough air through your skin to live, to breathe? No. Neither can plants. Plants don't breathe through their leaves. They breathe through their roots. They perspire. They exhale through their leaves. All right? So you need to make sure that when you build your garden, that you raise that bed so when we have that freak rainstorm and everything's under 6 inches of water, your plants don't drown. Okay? So something else is that the plants do absorb carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen through their leaves, but they're going to get the majority of the nutrients and water and air through the roots. Make sure you have drainage in the roots and that you've elevated your gardening area. All right. Number 4 is water. You can use any non-toxic water. Use gray water, that's fine. If you want to reduce your weeds, don't use irrigation water, right? Anybody who's used canal water knows it brings in 40 million weed seeds with it. The next thing is about watering, is never, ever, 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 ever overhead water. Don't use your rainbirds. Don't use your oscillating sprinklers. First of all, you're just going to be on the leaves. You're going to get them wet. They're going to get mold. They're going to get sick. They're going to get disease. All of a sudden, all these bugs show up, and I don't know why. All right? You're going to cause lots of problems. Besides that, you're weeding every weed seed. You're watering every weed seed that landed into your garden from your neighbor's dandelions, right? We only water the root zone of what we're growing to eat. So we use the automatic watering system, or we use a garden hose with a towel on the end of it. I'll show you that here in a second, right here. We turn the garden hose on. This is how I water outside in my soil beds. I turn it on all the way, full blast. But as soon as that water hits that towel, it loses its pressure. But I don't lose the volume. So it doesn't wash anything out. So within 4 minutes, it takes, from when I turn that faucet on, it takes 4 minutes for the water to get to the end of the 30-foot row. When I've got an inch of standing water, I turn off the water. That takes me about 4 minutes, and I'm done watering that row. In the boxes, because I have the tube going from one end to the other, it waters the whole bed at once and takes 60 seconds. Okay, so it takes a little bit longer with the garden hose, but you don't have to drill any holes. All right? So when people are having to turn their lawns into gardens, and they can't go down to Home Depot and buy the PVC pipe and drill the holes and set up the automatic watering system, this is completely doable. Grab the garden hose, put a rag on it, tear out the lawn, build up the ridges, and you're growing that day. That will happen, and trust me, they'll come to you for the help. Okay? So get experience in how to do that. Early morning watering is the best. First thing I do when I get up in the morning, I get dressed and I get a nice tall glass of water to rehydrate from all night long. I hope all of you are doing that too. You're what, 85% water? Plants are 90% water. If you have a wilting plant, it is dying. All right? So don't let it wilt. Make sure your garden is level. My backyard, those soil beds you saw, those soil beds are level. My garden area is nowhere near level, but we leveled the growing area, even though the walkways aren't level. All right, the 5th law of plant growth is where we see the most confusion, the most amount of wasted money, and it's just, a lot of it's just nonsense. So let me help you out. Gardening should be cheap, it should be inexpensive, it should be highly productive, and it should be nutritious. And we're going to explain how to do that here. Plants need 16 nutrients. We already talked about the 3 they get from the air, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. So they need 13 more from the soil. The major nutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Who is giving your plants at least nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium? 4 people. Okay. Ladies, have you ever in your life had a period when you were low on iron? Raise your hands. Okay, we're 100% of the women here. Okay, guys don't care and they don't know, so I asked the women. And guys aren't having babies, right? That's probably when you were low on iron. It's when you were producing fruit, right? Correlation here. All right. So, ladies, let me ask you, even if you had all the protein you needed, all the vitamin K, all the vitamin D, all the vitamin C, all the niacin, and all the everything else you needed, when you were low on iron, you were not liking life, right? And you don't need much iron. So there was definitely a symptom, wasn't there? And that's a nutrient deficiency symptom. So when you go to the doctor, he's poking, he's pinching, he's looking, he's taking temperatures, he's looking for what? Symptoms. Okay? So a plant will show you the symptoms when it's malnutrition also. Now when he prescribed the, get that?
Let me put this for you.
There'll be no reason why everybody can't see this, all right? If there is, you let me know.
You're standing in front of her.
There we go.
You said let me know.
Okay, I appreciate that, Reese. All right, so when you took your iron supplement, then the symptom went away, didn't it, ladies? You got your energy back. All right, that's how we know plants need 16 nutrients. It's because if we take away a nutrient and there's a symptom and we give it back to it and the symptom goes away, obviously that's an essential nutrient. All right, this nonsense that plants need 90 nutrients is nonsense. How do we know that? Because we've given in and taken away all these nutrients and they only show deficiencies when we have 16. So, if you are not giving your plants proper amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, you are creating a deficiency. And you're going to have symptoms. This is not a suggestion, it's a law of nutrition. So we have 4 of you giving them nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. How many of you are giving your plants calcium? No, 1 person, okay. What about magnesium? Anybody magnesium? Every one of these is going to cause a symptom and a deficiency. The deficiency is going to be weak plant, susceptible to disease, attracting bugs, low productivity, low nutritional value. What about the micronutrients? What about zinc? Anybody giving them zinc? Boron, molybdenum. Can you even say that? I had a commercial grower who grew alfalfa come to my greenhouse a couple months ago. He had just retired from 40 years of growing alfalfa. I said, did you ever give your plants molybdenum? He says, what's molybdenum? He had 3 harvests a year. He could have had 4. And each of those harvests would have been greater had he had simply given molybdenum. So for 40 years, he had reduced his harvest by 25% and his income by 25%. What if I told you you could increase your income by 25% by adding pennies, okay, in molybdenum? You'd do it, wouldn't you? He just didn't know, or didn't care, I don't know, but he didn't do it. All right, what we found out was that most plants have a nutrient deficiency, not a disease. Let me show you what I'm talking about. An acre of corn will remove 240 pounds of nitrogen, 90 pounds of phosphorus. This is right out of the Mittleider Gardening course book, right? This is one of the pages I just copied off of it. 180 pounds of potash, 25 pounds of sulfur, half a pound of zinc, 1/10 of a pound of copper, 2 pounds of manganese, all right? So what happens if you harvest that corn and you put the next crop in and you don't replace all this? Yeah, I see it in your faces. You know what's happening. You're going to have a deficient crop, aren't you? You're going to reduce the productivity and the health and the nutrition of that crop. So, how many of you have heard, feed the soil, feed the plants? My wife's a 30-year gardener. She's a certified master gardener, and that's the mantra. Feed the soil, feed the plants. I'm telling you, it's backwards. Okay? How many of you, tell me when will you have fed the soil enough?
It doesn't matter if it's not bioavailable.
Very, very true. Thank you. Not many people get that.
Say that again.
So if it's not bioavailable, if it's not available to the plants, it's not even doesn't even make any difference that you're giving it to the soil. Okay, you'll never, as we all know, get enough nutrients in the soil for you to be done, right? So we don't use non-water soluble nutrients. This is the seaweed extract. This is the fish emulsion. This is the organic nutrients. This is the dry molasses that we were using to make compost tea. This is what my wife was spending a fortune on and working on every day in the garden to grow her vegetable garden. Okay? What people don't understand is that none of that was available to the plants. The plants did not use that. It was not biodegradable. Available. Do you know why? Because God has made it so plants cannot use organic nutrients. They have to be inorganic. They have to be water soluble. So let me explain. So if it's not available to the plant, who are you feeding? Well, you're actually feeding, yes, they could be bugs, but we're feeding the microbes in the soil. And we're feeding the microlife in the soil. The microlife take those nutrients, those organic nutrients, because that's what they need. That's what we need, right? We need organic nutrients. They take those organic nutrients, they eat them, they poop them out, and now they're water soluble and available to the plants. All right? That's how that works. When people say, "Oh, I don't want to use processed nutrients in my garden," you just did. All right? It just went through the process. It's all happening underneath the dirt. Well, that's great, but what happens if all those microbes are constipated that day? What if someone's been using Roundup and the microbes are dead? You know Roundup is an antibacterial. What you're feeding in the soil is bacteria. All right? So, we won't go into that. But anyway, word to the wise. So, we don't use these non-available nutrients. We use water-soluble nutrients that are very inexpensive that you make yourself. Many of you may know J.I. Rodeo. He was the publisher of the Organic magazine. He's the father of the organic movement. He said organic means without pesticides. People are so concerned. I don't want chemicals in my garden because that's organic. No, organic, according to the father of organics, is pesticides free. How do you get a pesticide-free garden?
Have a healthy garden.
Have a healthy garden. How do you have a healthy garden? Feed your plants. How do you have healthy kids? You feed them properly, okay? Now, if you fed your kids Twinkies and hot dogs all day, they wouldn't die, but they wouldn't be very healthy. And if we're not feeding our plants properly, they won't die right off, but they're not going to be healthy. Yes?
Does this work for fruit trees also, apple trees?
It works mind-blowingly well for fruit trees and apple trees. I'll cover that.
Without insects?
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to spray for insects.
Well, it depends on what's going on, but my experience is I've never had to spray my fruit trees for insects, and I'll share that with you. So he also said, this is very important to understand, a plant cannot tell the difference between nitrogen from a leaf and that from a fertilizer bag. What does that mean? It means nitrogen is nitrogen is nitrogen.
It's an element.
It's an element.
No matter what form.
It's exactly right. It's the N on the periodic chart. It's nitrogen. I can go to Home Depot and get a bag of lime, and I have nitrogen. Or I have calcium. Okay, sorry. Or I can go to Home Depot and get a bag of gypsum, and I've got calcium. Okay? It doesn't make, I can use chicken eggs, right? Eggshells, and I've got calcium, right? It's all calcium. The chicken egg, unfortunately, isn't available for 6 to 12 months after I put it in the soil, because what has to happen?
Decompose.
It's organic, isn't it? And so the microbes have to eat it. It has to go through that whole process. The lime is immediately available, or the gypsum is immediately available. right? So I don't use eggshells in my garden anymore. At least my wife doesn't. All right, so let's talk about fertilizers. Which bag do you want? Fertilizer A, fertilizer B. Fertilizer A has aluminum, barium, strontium, uranium, cadmium, arsenic, lead, mercury, silica, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And this bag only has 3 ingredients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Which would you want?
B.
B?
No, hey,
A has a lot more, doesn't it? Then would you want to have A?
yeah.
Yeah?
God's world's simple, I'm going with the 3.
God's real simple. You don't. Who wants to have A?
Well, for the lead, I can mine that, right?
Sure. Yeah, you can put that little gunpowder behind it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Who wants to? Okay. So let's define this a little bit clearer. Bag A has 11% aluminum. Okay. It has 65% sand. So you got 76% of sand and aluminum you're putting in your garden that you're buying. Then it's got 0.15%, so 1/10% of nitrogen and phosphorus, and 5% potassium. Or this one has 16% nitrogen, 16% phosphorus, and 16% potassium. Which would you like?
B.
Still B. All right. You may change your opinion on the next slide. This one is organic. This one's synthetic. Do you still want to be putting aluminum, barium, strontium, uranium in your garden?
No.
It's organic. It's OMRI certified organic. Don't get caught up in the franchise of organic gardening. Okay? Certified organic means you can charge 4 times more for your food. All right? I want to buy this bag. You know why? Because I know what's not in it. Jacob Mittleider found throughout the world, anywhere in Zimbabwe, okay? He could go anywhere, and when he found a bag of 16, 16, 16, he knew that nothing else was in that bag. Now this is 16% nitrogen, 16% phosphorus, and 16% potassium, so there has to be something else in the bag.
What's the other?
And that is a carrying agent. It's usually diatomaceous earth, okay? Which is great for what?
Bugs.
Getting rid of bugs, right? So if you're going to have a carrier, why not be beneficial? So that's all that's in it, right? This here is azomite. Now, on the bag at the store, it doesn't say it has 11% aluminum. It doesn't say it has barium and arsenic and lead. It doesn't have it on the nice green bag in the store. So I dug and dug and dug, and I actually called it azomite, and I found the certification of an analysis on their product. All right? That's what you get. Be careful what you get. Being certified organic means you don't have to label your bag. Okay? All right.
So azomite is a brand.
Yes.
And it's not good.
I'm just, you decide whether it's good or not. I'm just telling you what's in it. And from what they have on their website, they mine it in southern Utah. It comes right out of the ground. It hasn't been changed by man, which means it's organic. All right, and they bag it and they sell it as fertilizer. Okay. So I would rather buy any brand of 16, 16, 16 because I know what's not in it. I know exactly what I'm getting. All right. You can get whatever you want. Now, before I found out about the Mittleider gardening method, I had bought azomite. Matter of fact, I thought if one bag was good, I'll buy 2. So I had 2 bags of azomite, and they say it has over 90 nutrients and minerals in it. So once I realized that plants only need 16 nutrients, I thought, well, what are the other 84 or whatever it is that's in the bag? That's when I found the analysis sheet on their website. And I thought, you know what? I don't want aluminum in my garden. I don't want arsenic in my garden. I don't want lead in my garden. And this costs a whole lot more than this. A whole lot more. So this all gets back to what Jacob has found. All around the world, it's very inexpensive to grow food. We are growing tomatoes using the Mittleider gardening method and the nutrient packs for 2 cents a pound. All right? In Houston, our tomatoes were selling for more, up to 2.5 times more than any other tomato in the store. You know why? Because they taste so much better. You know why they taste better? They didn't have the mercury, lead, and arsenic, which has that bitter taste to it. But because they had all the nutrients in it at the right ratio, so the plants were able to make sweet produce. The buyer for the store who walked in our backyard, we were growing too much food. We just couldn't eat it all. I will not give food to my neighbors. I did. I learned a lesson. I'll share that with you. I created a welfare state. If I picked it, if I washed it, and if I delivered it to their door, they were very grateful for it. If I invited them to come over and harvest it, nobody showed up. I was trying to inspire them. Look at the amazing produce. David, are you coming over Tuesday? Do you have tomatoes? I have them in my backyard. You're welcome to come over across the street.
That is a true story. That happened to me. I could not, if I picked it and took it to them, or even took it down to
your church?
To church.
Yeah.
Then they would take it. I'd say, please, please, I don't care when you come. Just come and pick. I have so much Swiss chard.
Yes.
Nobody would come.
Yes. So I
that's
do
a
not.
true statement.
I do not share with my neighbors, and I tell them I am here to help you. You all have my personal phone number. Okay, I am here to help you. But when the event happens, whatever it is, don't come knocking on my door with your hand out. All right, I've been here for years trying to help you. All right, as you bought your new Mercedes and you went on your cruises and so forth. All right.
This strikes me as one of the parables of the Lord, the parable of the 10 virgins. Hey, I've got some good stuff, come on over. They don't.
Yeah.
Then they're not prepared.
Not prepared. I'm trying to prepare people. I know that I'm a smarter gardener now than I was last season, simply because I have a season behind me. We're trying to get people to get the skills right now before they actually have to live off their skills. You can't take a seed, put it in the ground, and expect to eat. You have to know exactly what to do with that seed. All right. So we've gone through this periodic chart. Iron is a chemical, right? It's a mineral, right? And it's a nutrient, right? Whatever you call it, it's the same thing. And bottom line, everything in the world is a chemical. Don't be afraid of chemicals, all right? When you eat carrots, what does your body see? Does it see an orange pointy thing? Or does it see the niacin, the calcium, the sodium, the zinc, the copper, the molybdenum, the potassium? What does it see? It sees all this, doesn't it? So what you're really telling me is that your body is a chemical processing plant. Right? Do you know where you get your vitamin K? Your body makes it. It takes all these nutrients that you give it, it takes it and it creates the vitamin K molecule. If you're not getting it from vegetables, in addition to what you're getting from vegetables. So as you're eating this, it's building up your nutrients, and it sees a Dunkin' Donut come in and goes, I'm not sure what to do with this one. But anyway, so you are a food processing plant, and so don't be afraid of the chemicals. All right, so let's take a look at this. Any of you ever seen these black spots in the bottom of your tomatoes? What's it called? Blossom end rot disease, right? Nope. It's a calcium deficiency. All you need to do is give it some gypsum. I saw your hand. Did you have a question?
No, I had that.
You had that, yes. Oh, I'm in your garden taking photographs, right? Yeah, that's all that is a calcium deficiency. All you need is calcium. How do you get calcium? It's super cheap. You go down to IFA, Cal Ranch, Home Depot, Lowe's, and you get a bag of gypsum. How do you identify that that's calcium? Well, you know what? All I did is I turned to lesson 18 in the Mittleider Gardening Course book under nutrient deficiencies, and it described perfectly the deficiency, and then it described exactly what to do to take care of it. That has saved my garden unbelievable amount of times. All right? So that's all you need to do. Magnesium. You guys ever seen your leaves? Everyone's head's going up and down. Okay, let me read this to you out of the Mittleider Gardening Course book, page 147. Magnesium deficiency. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Interveinal, so the part between the veins, yellow patches on maturing leaves. Yep.
My plum tree has that.
Your plum tree has that.
Had.
Okay? Now, so it's nice to be able to see what this is and identify it and treat it. All you need to do is give it some Epsom salts. Magnesium that's what Epsom salts is, right? How inexpensive is Epsom salts? You buy it in Walmart or Sam's Club, all right? Boron deficiency. Now, what's great is I don't have 10,000 gardens to take photographs from and tell you what the problem is and how to fix it. But Jacob Mittleider did. He documented everything. Every kind of vegetable plant that you can think of. He has 800 color photographs of all these deficiencies on zucchini and peas and broccoli and cabbage and tomatoes. Whether it's whatever the deficiency is, he shows you what it looks like. He tells you what it should look. It shows you what it should look like. Tells you what the deficiency is and how much to give it. So if it needs potassium, it tells you 1/4 of an ounce per linear foot. All right, and you're taking care of the problem. That is on the CD. The CD has $300 worth of books on it. It has all of Jacob Mittleider's 10 books and his 9 manuals on it. That 3-volume books called The Garden Doctor sells for $60. The CD sells for $60. At the fair, we have it at a lower price. The lowest price they've ever offered it, okay? And that includes all 10 books and 9 manuals. This is $50 here at the fair.
It's a CD, not a DVD.
It's a CD, and all the books are PDFs, and they're all searchable. So you put it in your DVD player, you're not going to watch a movie. You're getting 10 books and 9 manuals. So it works on every computer. Okay, as long as you have a CD player, it'll play.
Is this manual here included?
This is here at the booth,
Was it that book?
and the book is here at the booth.
Is that included in the CD?
This book is in the CD, absolutely. And if you have to choose, even though this has a greater value, I would say if you're only going to buy one, buy this one. The reason is because I grab this book all the time. It's on my in my office. I flip to the section I know, and in seconds I get the answer instead of loading up, finding, so forth. This is great. This is a great value. This is the how-to book. This is what you have to know what to garden to save your life. This is all the other really good information. But
You can take that one with you in hard times.
yes, but I still highly recommend this CD.
Let me ask you one more question before we move on. So I don't know how to say it, but you're saying that like boron.
Yes.
So is such and such, and that you can get magnesium. But so does it tell you in the book the simple like what was
16, 16, 16,
no, not that. Yeah, the simple thing, like you said.
Epsom salt.
Epsom salt, yeah, that's what I was.
Or
thinking.
gypsum.
Or gypsum. Does it tell you that?
Okay, right here, page 148 on magnesium, right here. It gives it the description, which I just read, right? And then over on the side, under corrections, for a 30-foot bed, it says 1 pound, half an ounce per linear foot of magnesium sulfate, parentheses, Epsom salts.
Okay, that's what I want.
Yeah, yeah.
It tells you how to apply it, right?
And you just sprinkle it on and water it in. That's all you're doing. It's just a granule. You just sprinkle it on and water it in. Yep.
Hand sprinkle or
Hand sprinkle with a hose. On my automatic watering system, I just turns on and it waters it in for me. Okay. Jacob wanted this in layman's terms, and so everybody can understand it. What's the grocery store name of it? This kind of stuff. If you don't know anything about gardening, that's the book. If you know a lot about gardening, that's the book. Okay. We're running out of time here. So before you plant anything, let's take care of the problem before it's a problem. All right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So Jacob, and this is in the book, you don't have to write down this math. We want to put in calcium and magnesium and boron in the soil. So we just go down to Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart and we get some gypsum because our rain level is less than 20 inches a year. All right? And we get some Epsom salt, and we get some borax. We mix that together in a wheelbarrow, and we sprinkle that on the ground, at 1 ounce per linear foot. Don't have to worry about writing that down, it's in the book. You sprinkle that down and you just turn that into the soil, then you plant your seeds, okay?
You do that every year, right?
Every time I'm going to plant. So I'm on my 3rd planting already, so every time I put that in,
Oh, okay.
okay?
Just like every time you use your car, you fill it up with gas.
There you go, refill it back up, okay?
So, David, how much is that bag going to do in the refrigerator?
This is different. This is a different mix, okay? So we talked about magnesium, boron, and calcium deficiencies. Those aren't the only deficiencies you see in your garden, are they? All right? You guys ever seen these kind of crinkled up, dry, crispy edges on your leaves, especially your cucumbers, and your cucumbers curl?
Yeah.
All that is potassium deficiency. That's it. Potassium is super, super cheap. All right, just go down to IFA or Cal-Rounds and get a bag of potassium. All I knew about cucumbers when I was growing up is that they were bitter and they were curled, and the leaves were all crunchy. Because my dad did not understand that all he had to do was add potassium to his garden and he would have saved his cucumbers. Okay? What I'm trying to teach you here is how to be a plant doctor. You're seeing symptoms. You now know how to treat, don't you?
Are you saying that that's why cucumbers are bitter?
That's one of the reasons. Another could be lack of water. That's generally a lack of nutrition or water. Yes. Okay, manganese, molybdenum deficiency, iron deficiency. Here's that yellow. You know there's 7 different colors of yellow, all indicating a different deficiency. You want a clear picture of it in color on your plant? It's right on the CD. Okay? Now, one thing I want to tell you about the CD or the books. My wife is a certified master gardener. Have you ever called the helpline and say, hey, I've got a problem with our plants? She was the lady that answered the phone. So she'd get a call and they'd describe the problem. She'd say, just a moment, I'll get right back with you. She'd go over to the bookshelf. She didn't know who Jacob Mittleider was. She'd pull out these 3-volume sets of The Garden Doctor, flip through it, find the deficiency, come back to the phone. All you need to do, ma'am, is add 3 ounces of Epsom salt. Wow, you guys are so smart. It's amazing. That's what she knew about Jacob Mittleider as a master gardener. They had his books on the shelf. All right? All right, so to take care of these other problems, Jacob put together another nutrient mix, which has all these trace minerals in it. Again, no one's adding boron here, no one's adding molybdenum, no one's adding manganese. It's all in these micronutrient packs. Now, can you go down to IFA or Home Depot or Lowe's and get 16, 16, 16? Yes, absolutely every day of the week, right? Except for in January when I wanted to plant and nobody had it. So do you know what I do? I have 525 pounds of 16, 16, 16 in my garden shed. Why does David have 525 pounds of 16, 16, 16 in his garden shed?
Why, David?
Because I garden as if my life depends on it. And it's completely portable. If the semi-truck pulls up because there's a flood or an earthquake or whatever coming, and I have to pack up all my gear, I'm packing in my food storage and my nutrients for my garden. Because if I'm going to go long-term camping, I plan on eating fresh fruits and vegetables. And so this is completely portable. So I've got, my wife goes down to Sam's Club, and she picks up an extra carton of Epsom salt, just like how we built up our food storage. So I have 5 years supply of all the nutrients in my portable garden that wherever I go, I can grow my food. Yes?
When do you normally apply your trip 16?
I apply it weekly. We're going to cover that in a second. But we do it in a mix. Now, it's very easy for you to get the 16, 16, 16 and the Epsom salt. Where do you get molybdenum?
You're not going to fit through it anyway, dude.
Right, you don't. Right? Where do you get the copper or the iron? You don't. Well, you can. You're going to buy it in a 50-pound bag. It's going to cost you $500 to $5,000, okay, for one of these ingredients, and you only need this much for your garden. So when I learned about this method, and I'm buying these nutrients from mittleidergardening.com, I thought, you know what? I'm buying, someone's mixing this, and they're getting paid to do this, and I could probably do this myself. I would have spent a fortune buying 50-pound bags of this and only needing 10 ounces of that. All right? So where do I get mine? Same place you get yours. All right? From the Food for Everyone Foundation at mittleidergardening.com. All right? This little package will make 60 pounds of nutrients, all in the right ratios, all in the right amounts. So next time I ask who's adding boron, you can all raise your hand. Who's adding molybdenum? You can all raise your hand. Who's adding copper, zinc, iron? You can all raise your hand. Who's adding arsenic? No one raises your hand, right? All right. So all I do with this, and inside of this package, it has the instructions. All you do is you take one of these two 10-ounce packages of micronutrients. You add 4 pounds of Epsom salts that you bought at Sam's Club or Costco or wherever, right? You add 25 pounds of 16-16-16, all natural mineral fertilizer. You mix it together with some perlite to absorb the moisture, because Epsom salt is 7 parts water. I throw mine in a 5-gallon bucket with a gamma lid, because I'm in it once a week, and I don't want to break my nails peeling the lid off, right? My grow boxes are 30 feet long. So once a week, I measure out ½ an ounce per linear foot, which is going to be a pound, let's say a pound. And I marked it in my can here, so every week, all I have to do is fill this can up to that mark. And I'm fertilizing an entire 30-foot long row of food. I simply get the nutrients that I've already mixed up in here, get it to the top of that line, and I walk down the center, and I just sprinkle it on, and water it in, and I'm done. And they get all the nutrients they need.
You put it
Just right on the top.
on the top, where the plants are.
Where the roots are. Yep, about 4 inches away from the roots. That's it. Okay? No more of the blood meal, bone meal, seaweed extract, fish emulsion, none of that guessing, all right? Right amount, right ratios. If you're low on iron, can I double your calcium and take care of the problem? No. How much iron is in fish emulsion? What percent is it a boron? How much zinc is in it? What about manure? Okay? If you put manure in your garden in a 30-foot bed, you're going to put down about 15 pounds of salt is what you're putting on your garden, and you put down 20 pounds of manure. We're putting down 7 ounces. Okay? So, a lot less runoff, a lot less problems, yes.
When you do this, does that mean you don't have to rotate?
Good question. Thank you very much. Do we rotate? Why do we rotate? Because of disease, bugs, and nutrition, right? What do we do? What do we do for the bugs?
Grow healthy plants.
Grow healthy plants. What do we do for the diseases? Grow healthy plants. What do we do about the nutrients in the soil? We don't rotate. No need to rotate. Okay.
How much is a year's supply of the
It depends. If you're going to be growing this year, I'd recommend at least 2 to 4 bags of this. So,
like you have 5 years supply, so
yeah.
Trying to catch up with you a little bit.
I have 20 bags of these in my garage at all times. In my garden shed. Yeah, 20 bags of these. So I've got 40 packages. Okay? That's just me, guys. You do what you want. All right? But there is, here at the fair, you can buy that in a case lot of 20 packages at wholesale price. Right?
What's that?
It's $130 off whatever the normal discounted price is. All right? Below retail. But we have some at the table. This is and we're going to finish up with this real quick. This is my garden, my very first garden, Mittleider garden in Texas. This is 2.5 years ago. My wife was having problems in her organic garden. We also had a lasagna garden method going in here. We had the off-grid self-watering container gardening system. We had a hydroponic garden, and we had a back to Eden garden. And so what I had done basically is convert my backyard to a laboratory. And I could stand right here on the corner of my porch, of my garden shed, and see all the broccoli, cabbage, beets growing in all these different beds, and then compare them. People tell me all the time, I've got a great garden, and I say, compared to who? Right? So, this is the beet from my wife's garden. It's a good looking beet until you look at the beet from my Mittleider garden. My experiment garden, David, don't touch my garden. All right? I'm growing this in sand and sawdust. She's growing this in $1,000 soil. Again, we didn't talk about gardening at our house. In 3 months, I was out producing her 6 to 1 with much better tasting fruit, much faster growing fruit. We're growing 84-day corn and harvesting in 62 days. Why? Why is it 84-day corn? Because it's never been fed properly. The farmers are giving it nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and saying, "Oh, I'm going to give it the molybdenum, the manganese, and the zinc, and everything." Okay? You'll find that you're going to have less disease problems because you're in the garden less time. The plant's growing faster, so it's in the garden less amount of time, and you're being able to get multiple growing seasons in one season because you're getting more produce faster, and you can put more plants into the garden. Okay? So, pretty big difference there. This is my back to Eden garden. No dig, no till, no water, no fertilizer. Everybody goes to heaven, no one gets lost. Gardening plan. Or there's the work by the sweat of thy brow plan. All right. So, you choose. This is gone to flower, hasn't it? What does that mean? It's dying. That's exactly what it means. That's exactly what it means. It is, I have no more energy, I have no more nutrition. Before I die, I'm going to try to procreate, make seeds. This plant was planted in the back of Eden garden. This is a 2-year-old garden. I've been working with it for 2 years, building up that soil, following the instructions to the T. And this is the broccoli in my Mittleider garden. That's 6 weeks younger. This is photographed the same day. I was actually very proud of this cabbage. It's a good-looking cabbage until you compare. I mean, now this is lip balm. We made lip balm from our beeswax that we grew from the bees. That's a good-looking plant until you compare it side by side. I have a great garden compared to who? Compared to what it should be. Okay, are you getting all the nutrition from your plants? Are you getting all the food from your plants? Okay, are you being able to have multiple gardening seasons? It's a typical cabbage. Our cabbages are like this all the time. Okay, close your mouth. Yeah. I know, it is jaw-dropping, isn't it? This is normal. This is normal for a Mittleider garden.
It's astounding that it can be that simple.
Yes, I know, it is. But isn't truth simple? It is, isn't it? And you feel it. Okay? This is the first time I ever grew sugar snap peas. This is my first day of harvest. All right? I'm so glad that I took photographs of this so I can share it with you. Because no one would believe it. Our onions right now are about this big.
That's not fair.
Tomatoes, clusters and clusters and clusters of big beefy tomatoes. Here's the twine where we're growing up the Baylor twine here, okay? Growing vertically. First time we ever grew peppers. Right here is my cantaloupe hanging right here.
Wow.
We have pumpkin about this big hanging in my garden right now. It's about this far from the ground. Growing vertically. Why did I grow it vertically? Because I can grow an entire pumpkin plant in 21 inches. Not 100 square feet.
How does the plant hold that much weight?
It's all right in growing vertically in the book.
A watermelon.
Yes, we're growing next to the pumpkin is watermelon in my garden. So what I do for that, yeah, you can grow these hanging fruit up to about 6 pounds. This is a 4-pound cantaloupe. I don't know what they weigh in the grocery store, but this is a normal cantaloupe for us. The cool thing about cantaloupe is when you're growing it vertically, when it ripens, it slips off the vine. So when I walk out there at 7 o'clock in the morning, there's breakfast. And I know it's ripe. I'm not thumping it, smelling it, doing all that other stuff. It's ripe. All right? But on the heavier plants, anything over 6 pounds, like my 25-pound spaghetti squash I had grown last year, okay? I simply took the Baylor twine and I went underneath the neck. You know where it has the neck come out? And that's all I did. Put a little loop and tied it to the T-frame, and it held it. Okay? Here's my first time ever growing cucumbers. My dad is looking down at me going, way to go, David. Do you see the white edge here? Okay? That is potassium deficiency. The second I saw that, what did I do? I looked it up because I didn't know what it was. I knew it was a problem. I'm not that smart, but I'm smart enough. I'm smart enough to look it up. I went and added the potassium. That was burned. It was burned. It's not going to recover. No other leaf looked like that on the plant. Okay? And look at those cucumbers. So no more of using this expensive stuff in the garden and guessing at the nutrition level. My wife, I was working in my garden, and she was over working in her garden, and I saw her with a can of Mittleider Weekly feed. Ask her name's Sue, ask her if this is true. I grabbed my phone, and I took the documentary photo, okay? And later I didn't say anything. Later that day, she said, "David, can you teach me how to garden? Can you teach me what you're doing? Can you teach me how to mix this? I'm out here all day, every day, mixing up compost tea, putting the fish emulsion, guessing what's wrong with this. I'm fighting with the bugs. I'm putting down pesticides or, diet, whatever." And you're walking out once a week, you're sprinkling this stuff on your garden, and you're walking in the house, all right? And then you come out to harvest. So she converted to the Mittleider method because it was so much less work, all right? Now what we found out is when she converted, her kale exploded, all right? The lettuce, we should have been rabbits, all right? We had more lettuce and we didn't give it to the neighbors, but we had lots of lettuce, all right? The spinach, this was covered in aphids. She fed it the Mittleider Weekly feed, and then she would come out and take care of the aphids a couple days later. No aphids in the spinach. Ask her. Totally blew her mind.
No kidding, the roses.
Okay? That is what a blackberry, not a grape cluster, should look like.
Is that actual size?
That is her actual hand size per scale. That's her hand. That's my wife's hand. We were out eating blackberries. We're harvesting blackberries. We're eating blackberries like this, right? I said, "Hold it, honey, we got to take a picture." She said, "All right, you get 3 seconds, all right?" But anyway, that's what a blackberry should look. That is not a frankenberry. That is a blackberry. This is what blackberries should look like when they're fed properly, all right? What about strawberries?
Whoa. That's a smoothie.
Now, she texted me this photograph when I was up here last May giving gardening seminars. Every one of these strawberries was eaten before I got home.
That's why she sent text to do that.
That's right. See what you're missing? Come home, honey. All right? All right. What about your ornamental trees? That's a crepe myrtle. All right? We had never, ever, ever seen so many blossoms on it. You want to have the most amazing apple orchard, pear orchard, figs, nectarines, grapevines. Write this down. When your trees come out of dormancy, you want to give it 1 ounce of weekly feed and 2 ounces of pre-plant mixture per 1-inch diameter of the tree trunk.
Is that in the book?
It is not.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm telling you to write this down.
Say it again, please.
I'll repeat it. When your tree comes out of dormancy, you want to give it 1 ounce of weekly feed, 2 ounces of pre-plant mix per 1-inch diameter of the tree trunk. And you want to apply that from the edge of the tree, in other words, what we call the drip line, to the trunk. Just spread it around, and if you got grass underneath the tree or if it's bare, it doesn't make any difference, and just water it in. Okay? That's the first time you do it. Trees grow very slowly, so they take up nutrients slowly. So you don't need to apply it every week. You only do it 4 times. The second time you do it is when you see the blossoms. When your tree has blossoms, what's it mean? I'm getting ready to produce fruit. It needs nutrients. So that's the second time you give it the weekly feed. You don't need to give it the pre-plant. But you don't need to give it the pre-plant.
Pre-plant is just once.
Pre-plant is just once in the spring, and then once in the fall. So let me I do things chronologically. So in the spring, pre-plant and weekly feed. When you see the buds, blossoms, weekly feed. When you see the fruit, another application of weekly feed. And then before it goes into dormancy, the weekly feed and the pre-plant. 4 times a year. You want to get rid of those aphids. You want to get rid of those worms. You want to have amazingly sweet fruit. Feed your plants and water them. Okay.
You go that one time and it comes out dormancy, 1 ounce weekly feed.
Yeah. So in spring, when it comes out of dormancy, the weekly feed and the pre-plant. When you see the blossoms, the weekly feed. When you see the fruit, the weekly feed, and before it goes into dormancy, weekly feed and pre-plant. Remember, all these recipes and everything's in the book. That feeding regimen isn't in the book yet. Okay, so what about roses? Or flowers, let's say flowers in general. Roses have lots of bug problems. Feed them like you would, you probably feed them once a month is all you need.
With the weekly feed?
Always at the beginning with the weekly feed and the pre-plant, and always at the end with the weekly feed and the pre-plant. But in between, just the weekly feed.
What
Okay?
if you're just starting now? It's like the middle of the season.
Great question. What do I do right now? I'm in the middle of the gardening season. Okay, so if you were my son and you were malnutrition, do I wait till next year to feed you? No. I go home right now and I give you a green smoothie, all right? So yes, when you get home tomorrow or tonight, mix up your weekly feed and go down to IFA or Cal Ranch and get your ingredients for your pre-plant and then put it in your garden. Take a photograph today and then in 2 weeks take a photograph. So you'll see the difference.
And you put the pre-plant in also.
Yes.
Okay. Pre-plant and weekly feed right now?
Yes.
Start.
Right now, because you haven't done either, right? So pre-plant weekly feed. My wife, when she saw the light and was converted, right? She was talking about it with her friends at the Master Gardeners Association in Houston, and they said, "We'd like to have you do a demonstration garden." So she had Master Gardeners signed up to learn the Mittleider gardening method. 4 feet away from this row is the comparison garden. Every plant we grew in here, they grew it there. A lot of it was our plants that we had grown from seed. We grew twice as many and gave them to them. Okay. At one point, Lynn, who was in charge of the whole vegetable garden, walked over to their 20-year established garden. They did soil tests on both of them. We're growing in sand and sawdust. Guess what our soil test looked like? Okay? Guess what their soil test looked like? It had everything. Okay? We outproduced them 5 to 1. They were furious. I mean, it became almost physical. All right? And then finally, several of them came over and they literally apologized to us, to our faces. They said, "You know what? Behind your backs, this is what I've been saying and doing. I apologize. I apologize. You've shown us that it works. You weren't trying to push anything on us. You just showed us what you were doing and what you had learned. And I apologize. And how do I learn this? All right." So at one point, and you can ask Lynn. She now teaches the Mittleider gardening method to all the master gardeners there. She is working on her Mittleider Master Gardening certification. When we would go there and we'd teach them how to garden, I'd give little 10-minute, 20-minute presentations, and they'd say, "David, where did you get your PhD in agronomy?" And I thought they were making fun of me. I did. I thought, because they're master gardeners. Some of them for 20, 30, 40 years. And I said, I don't have a master. No, really. Where did you get you have a PhD? I said, "No, I read a $20 book." And then I realized that they were asking sincerely. And then the other people would say, "Well, where did you get your, whatever in agronomy or nutrition?" So I started bringing the book. I said, so they have the book there now, so they can get it. And they come up to me and they said, "I've learned more in 20 minutes than I've learned in 20 years of being a master gardener." It's simple. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be confusing. It's simple. So anyway, a lot of converted master gardeners now. Yes?
Your sand and sawdust mixture for soil, Will you talk a little bit more about that?
I would if I had time, but it's right here in the book. There's several mixtures you can use. The reason why I use sand and sawdust is it's cheap. The sawdust was free. The sand I bought for $25. So I have a 4-foot wide by a 30-foot box. Okay? I filled that with sand and sawdust. 2 parts sawdust, 1 part sand is the mixture that I like.
By weight or volume?
By volume. Thank you. Not by weight.
Do you really need sand, or can you just use dirt?
You could use, okay, you could use whatever you want, but I'm just showing you my personal experience, so I can't say. But there's lots of different recipes you can use. Okay, Jacob's put down the recipes that he has found successful in the book. So let me just finish here. So this 4-foot by 30-foot box I filled with custom soil for $25. I'm growing now over 2,000 pounds of produce in that garden right now, in that 30-foot by 4-foot box. You can come to my garden and you can weigh it yourself, all right? That's why we build the structures the way we build the structures, because it has to hold 2,000 pounds of fruit. We're talking a ton of produce in a 4-foot by 30-foot area. Now, where I bought the sand, and we want to use coarse sand, it's in the book, because the sand produces airspace between the sawdust. The sawdust holds the moisture and the water. We want to use coarse sand because it has different sized particles, so it creates airspace. The sawdust I get from cabinet shops, free. They were glad for me to pick it up. They bagged it for me. I was saving them $40 to $60 a month in dump fees. All right, so they're glad to give it to me. The one thing you want to know about sawdust is you don't want to use anything that has walnut in it. No walnut, because it has tannin. Tannin will kill your plants. It's organic, so it must be good. So is arsenic. But no, tannin will kill your plants. All right. So don't use any. So when I went to the cabinet shop, I said, I need some sawdust. Absolutely. I just can't take anything with walnut. He says, no problem. I'll make sure I put that in a separate bag. He was glad that I was just taking all this other stuff. One man's garbage is another man's treasure, right? I could have filled up that box with the raised garden bed soil where I bought the sand. If I had done that, it would have been $540 instead of $25. Or I could have filled it with Mel's Mix, $1,440. Dirt should be dirt cheap, right? It just needs to hold the plant, hold the water, hold the nutrition. Yes.
So, I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Are you saying manure probably not a good idea?
You know, if you have manure and you need to get rid of it, go ahead and use it. What I would recommend you do is don't count it on for nutrition. You may add it for tilth, okay? And I would recommend you till it in the fall. Let it decompose during the winter, and you're fine. I would not, I don't, you know, even if it's aged or green, just put it in the fall.
Other question I had is, you know, if space is not an issue, I have tons of space.
Uh-huh.
Do you still recommend doing a vertical, you know, like versus letting it spread out on the ground?
You can do it any way you want. Let me just tell you this: in the Mittleider Gardening Course book, if you're going to grow, and this is worth $100. It's part of this, one of the appendages in the book. It's this growing sheet here. So in the gardening planning detail sheet, if I'm growing bush tomatoes in a 30-foot bed that's 18 inches wide, I'm going to use 52 plants, and I'm going to get 208 pounds of tomatoes. In the same space, growing vertically, I'm going to use 41 plants and harvest 615 pounds of produce. That's why I grow vertically. I harvest 3 times the amount in the same space.
Why?
Because the pole bean puts on produce consistently for 16 weeks. The bush bean puts it on for 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. You guys know what I'm talking about? When you have bush beans, you go out and harvest them all at once and can them, right? You have pole beans, they keep producing, they keep producing, they keep producing. On a tomato plant, a bush plant or determinant or patio plant, that's all the same thing. We'll put on all the fruit at once, like the Romas, or the San Manzanos, the paste tomatoes, and then you harvest it and you take the plant out. With the indeterminates, like the big beef, big boy, early girls, 4th of July, they're indeterminate. They will produce fruit for up to 10 years, non-stop, if you take care of the temperature, the light, and so, watering, and so forth. So you will get, in the same amount of time, in the same amount of space, 3 times the food. I grow food as if my life depends on it. I'm dead serious about that, and so I grow as much as I can vertically. Although everything outside in the dirt you saw, that's all just bush plants. The reason why I do that is I'm showing, as much as it is my garden, it's a demonstration garden, so I'm showing both. It all works. Okay? It all works. So you plant whatever you want to plant. I'm just showing you that you can plant, you can grow more food vertically. Yes?
In the book, does it say which types of tomatoes are bush and which are bean?
It doesn't, but whenever you buy a tomato plant, it'll say determinate or indeterminate.
Oh, indeterminate.
Yeah, those are the words you're looking for.
And you want which one?
Determinate or indeterminate.
Okay,
Determinate.
which one do I want? That's
The
the
vining is indeterminate. The height is indeterminate. Okay? So let me just finish up. Wherever you are in your garden right now, go home, start feeding, watering, make sure you got the right light, get them pruned, okay? Whether you're using a raised box or just in the dirt, this is...
Holy cow!
Oh, wow.
She's standing up. No, I'm just kidding. This is a Mittleider garden in Alaska. This is what happens when you have 22 hours of light and feed it properly and water it properly.
Wow.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and you know, the one before it, after the photo's taken, I'll flip back to the one before it. This is a garden in Idaho. There's their daughter. Okay? This all used to be lawn. You think they got serious about growing food? Okay? All right. So right now, here at the fair, instead of paying $25 online for the book with shipping, you're going to get it for $20. Instead of $20 for the micronutrient packs, you'll get it for $15. I recommend 2 to 4 packs if you're getting it for this year. Remember,
Those are those packs right there.
yes, it's never going to go bad. So it's crushed rock. It'll last until the earth burns with fervent heat. All right, and that's when all the weeds will be gone too. So that's a good thing. The CD library that has over $300 worth of books is here at the fair. It's $60, $65 online with shipping. It's here for $50. It's a great value. We do understand that a lot of you are not just thinking to your nose, but you're thinking in the future. You may be thinking of family and kids. You may be thinking, I need to grow a garden long term. I may be going camping. I need to take more than I need for this year. So they've authorized us case pricing on all these things. You can get, you'll save $130 on a case of micronutrients. And then you just get your 16, 16, 16 and your boron and so forth. I mean your Epsom salts as you go shopping. Case of libraries, case of books. Those are all available.
So
Okay.
how much of that rock that will last until the earth burns with fervent heat? How much of that would you get for a year's supply? Or?
And all depends on your garden is what you need. So for the average gardener, I'm saying for this year, I would get 2 to 4 bags of this. If you're looking next year or long term or helping out family or kids, I'd save money and get a case. It's never going to go bad. The bad thing is this is done by a nonprofit organization, and when their costs go up, their price goes up. It's the exact ratio. Okay, so they're not making money off this. They're just trying to buy more nutrients so you can have this.
How much is the case?
A case is normally $400, I think. And so it's $130 less than that. It's $270. Yeah.
And how many's in the case?
20 is in the case.
$270.
Yeah. So instead of 400, it's 270. So we got another presentation in the spot right now. So I don't want to take up their time. We're in the other building. Look for my wife under the Mittleider gardening sign and ask her if I did outproduce her 6 to 1 and 3 months. All right?
Thank
Thanks
you
so
so
much.
much.